Ethiopian government declares a state of emergency. Prime Minister Abiy honors martyrs of November's third attack. Hello and welcome to this news hour. I'm Daniel Kasahon with the news. Today marks September 24th in Ethiopian calendar, October 24th in Ethiopian calendar, which marks the glory to fallen heroes of Ethiopia, the soldiers that generously paid the ultimate sacrifice for Ethiopia and Ethiopians. And Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed made this remark while making the one-year commemoration of the North Command soldiers that were victoriously attacked by the terrorist TPLF. We'll bring you updates about this event later after a few news. The Council of Ministers has declared a nationwide state of emergency effective from Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. The state of emergency is supposed to be approved by the House of People's Representatives within 48 hours of the Council's decision. Announcing the declaration Tuesday, Minister of Justice Gideon Timotheos said the government found it necessary to declare a state of emergency as the situation in the country becomes hard to handle in the existing security structure. As to be recalled that Ethiopia disclosed the involvement of non-Ethiopian nationals along with the TPLF in the deadly fighting at the Olo front. This is in light of some foreign powers, especially Egypt, giving hands to the TPLF in an apparent attempt to destabilize the nation. Santayo Tamrat has more on that.
Briefing cabinet members and senior government officials on current affairs, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has admitted that the government was not prepared to deal with TPLF's mobilized human wave at Wall Front. Hence, the issue is being addressed and implemented strategically. The government leveled accusations against certain Western powers and aid agencies of spying for TPLF and providing logistics and weaponry for TPLF. This is in line with their desire to see a puppet government at the strategic Horn region where Ethiopia has been emerging as a dominant player. And in recent battles at Wall Front, foreign mercenaries have been found killed by Ethiopian fighters, and they are both black and white according to the Premier. He added that the general public support for the army should be strengthened more than it is now. He cautioned that the war Ethiopia is facing is not with one side.
በደሴ ውጊያ ከቲፒኤልኤፍ ጋር ተሳትፈው ሞተዋል።
Both black and white nationals of non-Ethiopian descent have participated in the battle in the city. No doubt on this. It's not me saying that the TPLF is a Trojan horse being ridden by some external powers. It's practically proven in some battlefronts. Our intelligence knows there are people of foreign passports that have been spying for the TPLF and helping their mission with other backings. We know these foreigners are working on foot with TPLF in battlefronts to attend TPLF evil mission on Ethiopia and Ethiopians. As part of this plot that non-Ethiopian descent have paid sacrifice on the Wall Front. We therefore need to strengthen our efforts to fight not only TPLF but also their riders.
Although the TPLF denied the involvement of any external forces alongside it, the Ethiopian government has been consistent in the accusation to the extent of showing real actors. One major tactic of the TPLF has been colluding with any force that is anti-Ethiopian. Some foreign powers, especially Egypt, have been giving hands to the TPLF in an apparent attempt to destabilize the nation. This is considering the fact that Egypt has been frustrated by fruitless attempts to undermine the African Union in the Garden negotiations, as well as the latest ruling by the UN determined to press ahead with the negotiations. Lately, it has become evident that some Egyptian media have been closely working with the TPLF.
Our relationship with the OLA, but we are ready to work with anyone.
Another possible agent could be fighters from the neighboring Sudan. During the fight in Afar and South Gondar, several Sudanese national mercenaries were found dead and captured. TPLF trainees camouflaged as refugees have been waiting for the Sudanese corridor to open in vain. Some of these TPLF fighters in this front carried UN ID cards. This is in fact part of TPLF's ill intention to internationalize the conflict in North Ethiopia. During the first week of the conflict in Tigray, for example, the TPLF was launching rocket attacks in Eritrean cities. And this grabbed huge attention from the international media and community. Some global powers appeared to condemn this TPLF attempt of giving the conflict international image.
Ethiopia is today commemorating November 3rd, 2020, attacks on the North Command that happened exactly a year ago. The sad incident led to the deaths of many soldiers that had been protecting the people of Tigray for more than 2 decades. Today, we commemorate this day nationwide. The Amhara Regional State Police Commission has graduated special forces. The graduates are said to have taken the training to join security forces following the region's call for protecting Ethiopia from divisive terrorist groups. According to the Commission, a call was made at the event for all Ethiopians to join hands in punishing the TPLF that has already made incursions in the state of Amhara and in the Afar region. Present at the graduation ceremony were federal and regional high-ranking officials, including Vice President of the Amhara region, Getachew Jumber, and Minister of Federal Revenues Authority, Getachew Laga Ayale.
ሀገራችን እየተበጠበጠ እናት ወንድሞቻችን እየተገደሉ ምናምን አይተናል እና እኛ እሱን ለማቅረፍ ነው የመጣነው ከእናት ሀገሬ ፊት ለፊት ሆኜ ለመዋጋት ሀገሬን ለማስከበር የመጣው ኢትዮጵያ መሆናችን በጣም ስለምኮራ ወደዚህ አካባቢ መጣነው ወደ መከላከያ ሰራዊት የተቀላቀሉ ማለት እናት ሀገራችንን ለማዳን ኢትዮጵያዊነት ለኔ ኩራቴ ነው ግርማ ሞገሴ ነው መካበታሉት በኢትዮጵያ በመሆኔ በጣም ደስ ይለኛል አባታችን ወታደር ቤት 18 አመት አገልግሏል ሻለቃው ነው ከዛ መጥቶ ነው እኛ ያሳደገ እኛ ተወልደን እሱ ወታደር ቤት ያገለገለ ነበር ለእናት አገልግሎ ይሄ ሁሉ ሰራዊት እያለ ደግሞ ሀገራችን አትወድቅም
Regional governments of Somali, Harare, Gambela, Afar, and southern nations, nationalities and peoples issued a statement that called on Ethiopians to stand united against the terrorist TPLF, which was continued attacking innocent civilians. In a statement issued yesterday, President of the Afar Regional State, Awal Arba, urged all segments of the community in the region to join hands and mobilize in order to end the incursions of the renegade group. Awal said forces of the TPLF terrorist organization killed civilians, committed gang rapes and vandalized public and private properties in the region, calling for concrete measures to weed out the criminal clique. The Harare regional government, to its part, said the TPLF terrorist group has mobilized traitors and mercenaries against all Ethiopians to dismantle the nation, calling all citizens to join the fight. Gambela regional government said strong unity and bravery is the only way to smash the terrorist group forces and free the nation from its aggression. The southern nations, nationalities and peoples region, for its part, call on all communities in the region to join the survival campaign against the ruthless criminal group. The Addis Ababa city authorities ask residents to register their weapons to defend their neighborhoods. Residents of the city are urged to register all firearms within 2 days and prepare to foil any attempt to disrupt the day-to-day activities of the city. Briefing journalists Tuesday, Kanaya Detta, chief of the city's Peace and Security Administration Bureau, said all residents must be organized by block and neighborhoods to protect peace and security in their home areas in coordination with security forces, who will coordinate activities with community police and law enforcement. There will be recruitment and organizing of the city's youth to work in coordination with security forces to protect peace and security in their area, Kana added. Those publishing fake information on social media were ordered to cease immediately.
አባቶቻችን የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን። ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው አንድ ላይ ተከብረሽ በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን 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 እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው በአባቶቻችን የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን። ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው አንድ ላይ ተከብረሽ በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን 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 እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው።
You are watching this news hour. Glory to fallen heroes of Ethiopia, the soldiers that generously paid the ultimate sacrifice for Ethiopia and Ethiopians. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed made this remark while marking the 1-year commemoration of the North Command soldiers that were viciously attacked by the terrorist TPLF. And exactly a year ago, the indomitable members of the North Command were treacherously and barbarically stabbed at the back by the traitor TPLF forces. What was the feeling of Professor Birhanu Nagga when he heard this sad news? Here with me is the leader of IZEMA, Professor Birhanu Nagga. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
And tell us, what was your feeling when you heard the Northern Command army of Ethiopia was stabbed at the back a year ago? What have you felt? What was your feeling?
Well, actually, what you feel in this kind of events is not only what exactly happened that particular day, but what the implications of that action is for the rest of the country and for the future. I mean, that event was, in my view, a very, very tragic event. It is tragic on so many fronts. It's not, it's tragic that part of the National Army, led by the TPLF political leaders, have committed a heinous crime against the state, a complete betrayal of the Ethiopian state on that particular day. It is tragic also on the human side, the fact that people who have been in the trenches to fight against a potential foreign enemy for a long time, to protect the people of Tigray together, who have been working in the fields when harvest time comes with the peasants, that these people that were working together, these comrades in arms that were working together, have have to commit this kind of crime towards their own brethren. So at the human level, it is also very, very tragic. I cannot imagine what it means for a soldier killing, a sleeping comrade just because of this crazy group's attempt at coming to power, or whatever it is that their calculation is. But that is clearly a tragedy that is about to lead to serious and significant loss of life and limb for the country. So it is a very sad, tragic event that, it's one of those things that history never forgets. I think our children, our great-grandchildren, and future generations would remember this unnecessary bloodletting.
We can call it the worst tragedy in the world, because they were in the same group. Yeah, friends attacked their fellow friends.
Yeah, that's why it is tragic, both at the at the national level, at the political level, at the military level, but even more at the personal level, at the emotional level. What you sit down and wonder, what was that guy thinking when he was killing his comrade in arms at the trenches, just because some ethnic, blind ethnic political force is telling him to kill his own friend. I mean, so I can imagine. I mean,
even they had some of them had dinner together.
Yeah.
During that night.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is an all-out tragic event, no matter which way you look at it, and the consequences, we are still living with the consequences, and it's going to be a while before we completely clean this really dark spot in our country's history. This is one of those things that future generations will remember. This is one of those things that you tell your children and your grandchildren that you were alive in that moment. This is what has happened. This was a threat that the country faced by this force. This is, a blatant manifestation of the irrationality of power to a certain degree, in the sense that, when you go back and think at that period, TPLF has done a lot of damage to this country over the last 28, 30 years.
Right.
But during this whole time, there was no moment, after all this tragedy, and when the change comes through a popular rebellion in one form or another, nobody was interested in, imprisoning the TPLF forces or the TPLF guys. Nobody was interested in, jailing all these TPLF guys who have committed heinous crimes on Ethiopians. Nobody was interested in, confiscating the stolen loot that the TPLF has done for the last 27, 8 years. I mean, people were willing to go forward. Let bygones be bygones. Let's just concentrate on rebuilding this country. So you sit down and say, so why were they fighting? What, you know, if for example,
there
you feel
was an
threatened.
opportunity
For
forgiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. And they decided, whatever wisdom is guiding them, they decided that they cannot live in a society where they are not governing, that they are not ruling, that I think they have gone mad with power, that they feel that this country that they ruled with abandon for the last, for 27 years is a country that they would rather not live in as a normal civilian person, as a normal citizen, unless otherwise they lead it, unless otherwise they do whatever it is that they want with the people who live under in these countries, and then they are willing to destroy the country.
There is a pretext that they are mentioning. This government is going to commit genocide against the Tigray people.
I mean, they have been saying this, you know. I remember during the 2005 election, there was one incident where an older Tigrayan guy from Tamben had a fracas with a group of 3-4 young people in his neighborhood, and when we were arrested because of the problems that emerged after the election, one of the things that the prosecutor accused us of was committing genocide. And this genocide, when the evidence was presented, was this guy who was beaten by these, 3 young people who he cannot even remember that these 3 young people who has beaten him were even in prison with us. A genocide, because one Tigrayan was attacked by a group of young people, ignoring what has happened, what provoked it, what was the issue, why did they go, forget that. But just because one guy is attacked, it is a genocide against Tigrayans. This thinking that anything that happens to a Tigrayan, even after committing all kinds of crimes, is genocide, has been a preparation. I mean, if you remember, during that time, they accused us of being interhamwe, trying to eliminate Tigrayans. I mean, we are civilians. We are having a political debate about the future of this country. So anyone that opposes TPLF, for them, is committing genocide against Tigrayans. They have been preparing the Tigrayan people, with no evidence whatsoever that they are under threat, that these other ethnic groups that they are ruling are about to get up and, kill them. There has not been an iota of evidence that there was any intention by any group to do that in the past. Even now, after they committed all this crime on the Ethiopian soldiers, Tigrayans are still living among us without any retribution or retaliation. If you listen to the rhetoric that comes from the government and from the average person, really, I mean, it really is a mark of a level of civilization that Ethiopians have gone through, that despite all this, despite all what we have been hearing about what the TPLF has done in the areas that it occupied in the Amhara region, I have not heard anybody, even unintentionally insinuating that something has to be done to Tigrayan civilians that live with us. So there is no evidence, there is not an iota of evidence that anybody was in any way interested, including the government, to attack Tigrayans just because they are Tigrayans. Not only that, actually there is a deliberate attempt. Even when the state of emergency was declared, it was very clearly stated that we have to be very careful not to create any inconvenience among peaceful civilians, no matter what their origin. In fact, that there is a potential danger that, you know, things like state of emergency can be abused by some people, some rogue people within the security apparatus, that we have to all be very conscious, because we are going to live with these people after this war. These are Ethiopians, these are our brothers and sisters, and we don't want anything to happen to them. But we have to make a very clear distinction between the average Tigrayan or the Tigrayan people in general and the TPLF. The TPLF is a merciless, brutal, destructive force that this country has ever seen. This has to be dealt with, you know, in such a way that these kinds of problems would come back again. But when we do this, we have to be very, very careful that civilians are not.
Yes, I think we need to have a distinction between TPLF group and the Tigrayan people. And let's come back to the issue of genocide. And unfortunately, or to your dismay, this is supported by the Western powers. They accepted their claim that this government is going to claim genocide.
No, I mean, to be fair, I have not seen yet any official designation of this conflict as a genocide. I haven't seen it from the United Nations. I haven't seen it from Western powers. I haven't, other than the TPLF and its propagandists on the social media, where they created this so-called genocide group, and all they talk about is a genocide every time something happens, because they want an official designation by Western powers or by the UN that a genocide is committed, because it has an implication in terms of how the rest of the world responds to it. So I don't think there is any official designation. If there is, it would be absolute insanity on the part of whoever makes this kind of determination without carefully looking at where and how a genocide is committed, on whom a genocide is committed. You know, one of the problems in our political lingo, this has become a very common thing. Every time a group of people were killed by some crazy group, then automatically say, oh, this is a genocide that's being committed. I mean, if that is a yardstick to designate an act, a genocide, then I don't think there is any ethnic group in Ethiopia whereby genocide has not been committed against them. Okay. That's how ridiculous it is.
Okay. Now the TPLF forces has continued their attacks, killing civilians, looting properties, and but the Western media and the Western officials seem to be dogmatic or opinionated in the reporting. What is the driving force, do you think, that you have observed here for such course of action?
I think, you know, many of these things would be clarified eventually. I mean, time always tells us what the motives are behind the actions of different groups in different circumstances. I think there is some interest that particularly Western powers and I think led by the United States believe that their quote-unquote national interest is in one form or another affected by the change that is taking place in Ethiopia. This could be because the previous regime, the regime that was dominated by the TPLF, has given them a completely free rein to do their bidding, whether in the name of fighting the war on terrorism on their behalf in Somalia and in other places. But whatever the reason, they believe that it was also partly because it was a force that has gotten rid of the old communist regime, the Derg. There is this sympathy for that movement that the West has been conferring during the period of the struggle. I mean, some of these people who are now officials of the Biden administration, one form or another, were during that period, advisors to this group, and were, some of them have even visited the field that the TPLF was fighting against the Derg regime. So these people have a personal contact and knowledge, and TPLF has spent quite a bit of money and resources to locate some of its supporters in different institutions, whether it is UN institutions or in different Western institutions. They have invested quite heavily on how to manipulate the media, particularly the Western media.
Can we mention here General Tzarkan Gebretensai and Siya Barha?
No, I mean, I don't know how many people are not involved in this from the previous TPLF, honestly, but I'm not even talking about individuals. I'm talking about TPLF as an organization have invested some of the looted money that it has taken from Ethiopians as a government to actually plant people either through paying them or giving them other favors to do its bidding. I mean, if you are a government like the TPLF government in the past, you know that it is not something that would last. When you have a government that's not fair, that's not addressing the issues that the general population feels, when there is a government that is interested in benefiting a particular group, whether it is on the basis of ethnicity or religion or what have you, or a political party, or the looting of a group of TPLF people who have become wildly rich during this period, if a government operates only on this criteria, and if their behavior is influenced by this, then they know, if they are halfway intelligent, they know that this is not going to last. Someday something is going to happen. Therefore, they have been investing in the post-power situation. And that investment is now what is paying, in my view, by way of this Western media that is trying to distort the story that is taking place in this country in favor of TPLF, whether it is Western government officials that are directly supporting the TPLF in one form or the other. But so all this, the actions of the TPLF are important in understanding why. Why is the West supporting it? The second is the potential analysis, which I think is misdirected by the West, that their interest, their long-term strategic interest in the region is going to be affected by this change that is taking place in the country, where hopefully some meaningful democratic order would come. Ethiopians would be more interested in building their own country and the future of their children, rather than cater to any foreign power. The situation with Eritrea, Somalia, and things of that sort might have created some kind of discomfort among some Western policymakers about it. But there is a third element, I think, that is very important that we have to acknowledge. On our side, on the side of our government, we have to acknowledge that we have not been communicating very well, especially with the rest of the world, about what actually is going on. We have allowed the TPLF to define the narrative. We have allowed TPLF supporters to actually define what this conflict is all about and what was happening. And we have not been giving adequate response and adequate briefing to the international community. So usually what happens when you don't have any information, credible information from one side, instinctively you go into the other sources, which you are getting from social media, or which is dominated by TPLF sources, as the truth. I mean, I have heard yesterday from some some Western diplomat that I know says, well, they are about to capture Debre Birhan. What's going on? I mean, so this country is going to collapse. I mean, you sit down and you say, you know, where is this happening? Which army is going there? You know, where is a battle going on? I mean, there is still a conflict going on in Dase and in Kombalcha. Forget movement toward this Debre Birhan. So I think it is very important going ahead. It is very important that our government, in addition to the briefing that the Minister of Communication is doing to the Ethiopian public, there must be this continuous briefing of the international community about what is going on from our perspective, from the perspective of the Ethiopian government and the Ethiopian people. I think that continuous engagement, continuous information is, I think, important.
It's necessary. Recently, you have a cabinet meeting recently, and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said that when the TPLF group advances, they say calm, and when we attack or advance, he didn't have a phone call from the outside world. What do you comment on this?
No, but I mean, by that he's essentially saying there is a very clear bias, that there is no fairness in terms of in terms of their judgment, and I think he's, I'm sure, in constant communication with these people, so he should know when they are biased and when they are not biased. But leave alone the Prime Minister who has all this information, we know that, you know, the reporting is biased in Western media. There has been lies. I mean, for those of us who have lived in the West and have believed the Western press as you know, the owner of the truth, we are now sitting. This was the news sources that we used to believe, because you hear some blatant things that you know. You sit here, you know what is actually going on, and what they are saying is completely far from the truth. So the credibility of the Western media has been seriously damaged, in my view, because of this bias. But I also know that despite our beliefs to the contrary, the Western media does not report just simply because something is a truth. They have an implicit understanding about the national interest of their respective governments. If they feel that the national interest, as defined by policymakers, is at this point that the TPLF is to be supported, and in all kinds of subtle ways, they will continue to do that.
What's the clear message that you want to tell to the whole world about the current situation of this country?
I think the message that has to be very, very clear, and that has to be communicated continuously and with reason, is A, please go back to a year ago and find out exactly what happened and how this battle is started. I mean, one of the ways the bias in the reporting in the Western media is they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about the fact that the TPLF started this war. They don't want to talk about the fact that the TPLF started this war by killing the Northern Command by their own comrades, innocent, sleeping, assuming that everything is peaceful. They were massacred by the TPLF forces with the aim that if they destroy the Northern Army, then they can very easily come back to power in one form or another. That is so important to know, that that is a starting point. The Ethiopian government, the Ethiopian army did not in any way start this conflict. There were many, many reasons that the TPLF have committed in terms of, behaving as if it is a government on its own, that as if it is not part of this government, that they can, defy the federal government at will. They have been doing that. I mean, if the Ethiopian government was interested in creating conflict on this, there were enough reasons before that. But in fact, the Ethiopian government has been very patient. I mean, sending, peace delegations to say, let's not go to war because of this, please, They defied that and they started that conflict. That is the starting point for any analysis of this. So that's the first thing that has to be clear, and that we have to repeatedly inform them. Because once a conflict starts, in the way it started, then it starts to move in its own motion. Then it becomes a defensive war, then you have to protect your soldiers, then you have, that protection would start conflict, it exacerbates it. That is what we have seen. That's the first thing. The second is, I think it is very important to understand why TPLF is doing this. What is it that the TPLF wants? Sometimes they talk about, they are going to change the constitution and things of that sort. Well, if there is a reason to change the constitution, and there are lots of reasons why this constitution has to be changed, it can only be changed through discussion, dialogue, and come up to some kind of understanding about what an alternative constitutional provisions need to be put. The reason why people are very nervous and want this constitution to be somehow changed is because of what it has caused, all these conflicts that are caused by the political arrangement that constitution. So that's the second thing. They could have achieved whatever it is that they want politically through dialogue, through engagement in the political process. They didn't want to. Then the question becomes, then why are they doing this? Even if, for example, they mistakenly believe that they can actually win this war, it must be obvious, it must be obviously clear to them that it can come at a very, very high cost. Even if they win, it's going to come at the cost of tens of thousands of Tigrayans and Ethiopians. And always in these kinds of circumstances, you sit down, you must, if you have some rationality, some sensibility, some humanity, you have to ask, is it worth it? Is it possible to get what I want in another means? Which they were offered repeatedly and they could have pushed, they didn't. So you ask the question, why are they doing this? Do they really believe that the Ethiopian people who have lived through these 27 years of what a TPLF administration means, whether in terms of corruption, whether in terms of human rights abuses, whether in terms of ethnic repression, in any measure that you want, for Ethiopians who have seen this for 27 years, and for people who have rebelled against that regime and changed it peacefully, relatively peacefully, to believe that they can now force themselves into the capital and come to power again, and people would just sit and accept this and would be ruled obediently, is insane. It is absolutely crazy. So it is when you look at all this that you say, well, the only explanation is these people have this real, damaged and deranged understanding of life that if they cannot rule it, then they have to destroy it. So the attitude seems to me now that what they are doing is they know they would not win this. They know they cannot come to power. They know that Ethiopians would fight them to the last person, and they are the rest of Ethiopia is, 90-some% compared to 5% Tigrayans. So they are essentially saying, let's create enough damage and havoc. Mm-hmm. Let's create this division that we have started building for the last 27 years and inflame it in such a way that nobody trusts each other. Let's break it down. Let's destroy this society. Why? Because we could not rule it. That is how suicidal, how irrational, how destructive this force is. That's why I don't see how we can get out of this without somehow degrading and debilitating the TPLF as a force. And better, more rational political forces come out of Tigray so that we can start the rebuilding process together.
We are making this discussion when the Biden administration revoked the AGOA opportunity for Ethiopia and some two countries from Africa. And how is this going to affect the economy of this country, and what should Ethiopia can do?
And I really think, and this message is to Ethiopians and to the government, this kind of pressure would continue. This is not going to be the last of it. There are going to be all kinds of pressures that the Americans would put on Ethiopia, on Ethiopian officials, hoping to save the TPLF and to make it part of a player in the future political dispensation of this country. If we bend now, my view is that whatever would come out of this is going to lead eventually to the dismemberment of this country. I think we should be able to be steadfast. I think we should be able to live with less. I think we should be able to tighten our belts and say, okay, these pressures are going to come. We are on the right. We have a just cause. We did not start this war. We did not want this conflict. We want the Tigrayans, our brothers, to live with us peacefully and their rights respected in a democratic society. What did we do? So if there is an aggressor, irrespective of our attempt to live peacefully and to change our political dispensation to something better, something that is equal to all. If that is a crime and if they want to put pressure on us so that we can bend and accept all this damage, forget all this damage that the TPLF has committed, and forget about the damage that they would cause in the future, just simply because they are relatively rich and that they can put pressure and sanctions on us, I think this is a moment that we as Ethiopians have to show, that we are our parents' children, that we have been betrayed before. We have seen a situation where even when we are on the right, even when we are aggressed, that some countries in the West have actually supported the aggressor and put sanctions on Ethiopia not to buy arms to defend itself. History sometimes shows you these things. They happen. So I think Ethiopians at this moment in history have to have the commitment, the determination, the wisdom to finish this in such a way that our unity and integrity would be protected, finish it in such a way that what we fought for the last 3 years to achieve some kind of democratization would be true, would be implemented, to finish this in such a way that our moral compass is not lost, that we are not gonna do anything that we will morally regret later, that the people of Tigray are our people, they are our brothers, our sisters, and that they are going to live with us in the future. Therefore, we should not do anything that would damage, at least consciously, that would damage this future relationship. But other than that, we should not bend to any pressure from anybody. We have a right, we are on the right, we have justice on our side. We did not start this conflict. We are protecting and defending ourselves, and that is our natural right.
Professor Brown Naga, Head of IZEMA and Minister of Education, thank you very much for your generous and candid explanation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
አባቶቻችን የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሽው በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም አንድ ላይ በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም ተከብረሽ የኖርሽው በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ
You are watching our special edition in connection to first year commemoration of the Northern Command Force staffed by the TPLF Renegade Group, and glory to the fallen heroes of Ethiopia, the soldiers that generously paid the ultimate sacrifice for Ethiopia and Ethiopians. Exactly a year ago, the indomitable member of the Northern Command were treacherously and barbarically stabbed at the back by the traitor TPLF forces. This special edition will continue and will bring you updates and special discussions here at the ATV studio. Stay with us.
ሀገራችን እየተበጠበጠ እናት ወንድሞቻችን እየተገደሉ ምናምን አይተናል እና እኛ እሱን ለማቅረፍ ነው የመጣነው። ከእናት ሀገሬ ፊት ለፊት ሆኜ ለመዋጋት ሀገሬን ለማስከበር የመጣው ኢትዮጵያ መሆናችን በጣም ስለምኮራ ወደዚህ አካባቢ መጣነው። ወደ መከላከያ ሰራዊት የተቀላቀልነው ማለት እናት ሀገራችንን ለማዳን ኢትዮጵያዊነት ለኔ ኩራቴ ነው፣ ግርማ ሞገሴ ነው። መካበታለሁ በኢትዮጵያ በመሆኔ በጣም ደስ ይለኛል። አባታችን ወታደር ቤት 18 ዓመት አገልግሏል። ሻለቃው ነው። ከዛ መጥቶ ነው እኛ ያሳደገ። እኛ ተወልደን እሱ ወታደር ቤት እያገለገለ ነበር ለእናት አገልግሎት። ይሄ ሁሉ ሰራዊት እያለ ደግሞ ሀገራችን አትወድቅም። ሀገራችን እየተበጠበጠ እናት ወንድሞቻችን እየተገደሉ ምናምን አይተናል እና እኛ እሱን ለማቅረፍ ነው የመጣነው። ከእናት ሀገሬ ፊት ለፊት ሆኜ ለመዋጋት ሀገሬን ለማስከበር የመጣው ኢትዮጵያ መሆናችን በጣም ስለምኮራ ወደዚህ አካባቢ መጣነው። ወደ መከላከያ ሰራዊት የተቀላቀልነው ማለት እናት ሀገራችንን ለማዳን ኢትዮጵያዊነት ለኔ ኩራቴ ነው፣ ግርማ ሞገሴ ነው። መካበታለሁ በኢትዮጵያ በመሆኔ በጣም ደስ ይለኛል። አባታችን ወታደር ቤት 18 ዓመት አገልግሏል። ሻለቃው ነው። ከዛ መጥቶ ነው እኛ ያሳደገ። እኛ ተወልደን እሱ ወታደር ቤት እያገለገለ ነበር ለእናት አገልግሎት። ይሄ ሁሉ ሰራዊት እያለ ደግሞ ሀገራችን አትወድቅም።
አባቶቻችን የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው አንድ ላይ ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን 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 እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው በአባቶቻችን የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው አንድ ላይ ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን 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 እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው በአባቶቻችን የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው አንድ ላይ ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን 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 እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው በአባቶቻችን የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው አንድ ላይ ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው የደፈረሽው ተከብረሽ ኑርሺው በአባቶቻችን 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 ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሽው በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም አንድ ላይ የደፈረሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም ተከብረሽ ኖርሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሽው በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም አንድ ላይ የደፈረሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም ተከብረሽ ኖርሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሽው በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም አንድ ላይ የደፈረሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም ተከብረሽ ኖርሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሽው በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም አንድ ላይ አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም ተከብረሽ ኖርሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም አባቶቻችን የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሽው በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም አንድ ላይ ተከብረሽ ኑርሽው በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም ተከብረሽ ኖርሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም አባቶቻችን ደም የተረከብንሽ እናት ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሽው በአባቶቻችን ደም በአባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም አንድ ላይ ተከብረሽ ኖርሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም
ሲያምራቸው ይቀጣል እንደ ጎመጇት እንድትወድቅ ሲመኟት ስታድግ እያዩት